The studio lights burned bright, and the applause sign blinked to life as Kelly Clarkson's trademark grin lit up the stage, her eyes gleaming with the kind of eager warmth that had made her a staple of daytime television. Beside her at the couch bore a familiar face, Christopher Meloni, charming and composed in a navy blazer, legs crossed, one eyebrow arched in that signature amused skepticism that fans of crime dramas had come to adore. The show had kicked off smoothly enough, filled with banter about law and order, behind-the-scenes antics, and Christopher's new fitness regimen. But it didn't take long before the atmosphere began to shift. Kelly, ever enthusiastic, leaned in with a smirk and asked, "So Chris, is it true you once stormed off set because of a disagreement with the director? That sounds kind of intense, right?" The crowd chuckled, but Christopher's smile barely twitched. "I wouldn't say stormed. Let's not dramatize things more than they were," he said, his voice edged with something that didn't quite match the casual tone of the show. Kelly's brow furrowed slightly, sensing the tension but pressing on with a laugh. No, it's just what I heard. You know, the headlines. I thought you could tell us what really happened." That word headlines seemed to land harder than intended. Christopher shifted in his seat. "See, that's the problem," he said, his tone sharpening. "People stop reading after the headline and think they know the story. They don't." A hush passed over the audience. Kelly tried to smooth it over with a light-hearted, "Well, you're here to set the record straight, right?" But Christopher's jaw was tight now, and his gaze leveled. "Are we doing this? Digging into tabloid nonsense instead of having a real conversation?" A nervous laugh trickled through the studio, but Kelly didn't back down. "Chris, I didn't mean anything by it. I thought it was something you'd cleared up before. Fans love hearing the behind-the-scenes stories, that's all." He leaned forward, voice low but intense. "Maybe what fans love isn't always what's good for us. You think it's fun to relive moments when we're at our worst for someone else's entertainment?" The shift was palpable. What had been a friendly talk show moment was now a philosophical impasse about celebrity, control, and media narratives. Kelly's smile faded as she nodded slowly. "I respect that," she said carefully. "But this is a place where people open up, not tear down." Christopher sat back, eyes flashing. "That's what you think. But from here, this feels like another setup, another friendly face trying to pull something raw for the sake of ratings." The crew, behind the cameras, began exchanging glances. The teleprompter operator paused. The producer gave a small shake of the head aboard the segment. Christopher stood slowly, smoothing down his jacket. "I came here to talk, not to be dissected. If that's too much to ask, then maybe I shouldn't be here." Kelly opened her mouth to respond, but Christopher had already stepped off the stage. The audience gasped as he disappeared behind the curtain. The cameras kept rolling in stunned silence. And just like that, the friendly, easygoing rhythm of the Kelly Clarkson Show had been shattered by a flash of unscripted honesty that no cue card could contain. Backstage, the tension was thick enough to choke on. Christopher Meloni strode past, the stunned crew with his jaw clenched and hands balled into fists. His usual composed demeanor unraveling with each step away from the cameras. A few assistants made tentative attempts to speak, but his glare was a silent warning not to try. Meanwhile, Kelly Clarkson sat frozen in her chair, blinking against the sudden emotional fog that had fallen over her set. She took a breath, her chest rising slowly as she turned back to the audience with a half-hearted chuckle. All she said into the stunned quiet, "That didn't go quite how I imagined." A few in the crowd laughed nervously, others whispered to one another, unsure whether the drama was part of the script. It wasn't. In the control room, the producer rubbed his temples, mouthing curses as he gestured for the team to cut to commercial. But even as the cameras faded to black and theme music filled the airwaves for the at-home audience, inside the studio, the discomfort still pulsed like static. Kelly stood and made her way toward the edge of the stage, pulling off her microphone. As she passed a stunned PA, "I'm gonna need a second," she muttered. No one stopped her. No one dared. She stepped into the hallway that led backstage, hoping to catch Christopher before he vanished completely. She found him near the back exit, pacing with his phone in hand. His expression hard but eyes stormy with something closer to betrayal than anger. "Chris," she called gently. He turned, not surprised. "Don't," he said. Let's not do the part where you apologize for doing your job. She shook her head. I want to understand what happened. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. You didn't just put me on the spot? Turn something private into a spectacle. Again, it's always the same. We're brought on these shows with smiles and coffee mugs. And then out of nowhere it's, hey, remember the worst day of your career? Kelly swallowed hard, guilt creeping into her voice. You're right. I didn't think I thought it was something you were open about. He looked at her for a long time, his expression softening just a bit. That's the problem. People think because I've spoken about something once, I've given everyone permission to use it whenever they want. It was silence between them, thick and bitter. Kelly crossed her arms and leaned against the wall. I've been on the other side of this too, Chris. I know what it feels like when the world thinks your life is entertainment. Her voice wavered, not from performance, but from experience. I try not to forget that when I talk to people, but today, I missed it. He stared at her, then finally nodded. Okay, fair enough. There was no grand apology, no sweeping resolution. Just two people in a quiet hallway, realizing they had both crossed lines without meaning to. You coming back out? Kelly asked quietly. He shook his head. Not today. She accepted it with a nod, her eyes meeting his one last time before. She turned and walked away. Back on stage, the show resumed, but everything was different. Kelly sat a little straighter, chose her words a little more carefully. And the audience, sensing the raw edge left behind, leaned in closer, not for drama, but for truth. Because in the end, what had happened wasn't just a clash, it was a reminder that beneath every scripted smile and rehearsed anecdote, real people carried real scars. Sometimes those scars didn't want to be touched. Asterisk Christopher Meloni's name still lingered on the teleprompter as the next guest was announced. But the air hadn't cleared. The viewers at home, oblivious to the full scope of what had unfolded backstage, watched as Kelly Clarkson returned with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The producers scrambled behind the scenes, debating whether to edit the incident out of future reruns or leave it untouched to stoke ratings. Word had already begun to spread through text chains and social media. Meloni walked off Kelly Clarkson's show live. Meanwhile, Christopher sat alone in the back seat of a black SUV parked just beyond the studio's loading dock. He wasn't scrolling through his phone or calling his agent. He was just sitting, thinking. The anger had mostly drained, leaving behind something far more difficult: the weight of being misunderstood on national television. He'd come on the show to talk about a new project, not rehash painful chapters of his past. The assumption that vulnerability was part of the package deal felt like an ambush. But worse was the audience's shocked reaction, like he had done something wrong by refusing to play along. A tap on the window interrupted the stillness. It was his publicist, brows raised, phone in hand. She's blowing up already, she said as he rolled the window down. He didn't flinch, but it. Then he rolled it back up. Asterisk back inside. Kelly stood off camera during a commercial break, sipping from a water bottle with trembling fingers. Her longtime stage manager, Julie, approached gently. You okay? Kelly nodded, then shook her head. I thought I was asking a question. That showed empathy. But I guess I crossed a line. Julie gave her a knowing look. You're not a mind reader, Kel. But yeah, that one cut deep. Kelly glanced toward the couch where Christopher had been sitting just 20 minutes earlier. She could still feel the tension in the cushion, the space left behind by his sudden exit. She had built her show on sincerity, warmth, and the idea that guests felt safe in her space. But now she felt like she'd betrayed that trust. A message buzzed on her phone. It was from Christopher. Just one sentence. Let's talk when things cool down. Kelly stared at it for a long moment. Maybe it wasn't over. Maybe it was just the uncomfortable start of a more honest relationship. When the cameras came back on, she addressed the moment directly. No cue cards, no teleprompter, just her voice. Sometimes live TV gets messy. Ain't. And sometimes we learn. In real time, today was one of those days. The audience applauded, unsure if it was allowed, but grateful for the honesty. In a world obsessed with drama, the truth, through unscripted and unpolished, still held power. Asterisk. As Christopher Meloni's SUV pulled away from the studio lot, the world outside was already catching fire. News alerts pinged across entertainment sites. Social media feeds exploded with clips from the segment, and hashtags like #Meloni walks out and #Kelly Clash began trending within minutes. Everyone had an opinion, some siding with Christopher for standing his ground, others defending Kelly Clarkson's approach as empathetic but miscalculated. Inside both camps there was a deeper conversation bubbling. Where's the line between vulnerability and exploitation? Between entertainment and emotional ambush? Christopher, meanwhile, had retreated to his hotel suite, drawing the curtains closed against the buzzing chaos outside. He sat on the edge of the bed, still in the outfit he wore on set, his tie loosened and jacket slung across the back of a nearby chair. His phone lit up again and again. Texts from friends, missed calls from his agent, a flood of mentions online. But he ignored them all. In the silence, he replayed every second of the encounter, how quickly it escalated. How something that started as a gentle back and forth had felt like walking into a trap. He didn't regret walking out. He regretted not seeing it coming. *back. At the studio, the aftermath took a different shape. Kelly had wrapped the show with grace, but the moment hung over everyone like a storm cloud. The producers debated whether to release a statement, but Kelly made the decision first. She sat down in her dressing room and opened Instagram. Live no makeup, touch-up, no glam lighting, just her, raw. "Hey y'all," she began, her voice steady but somber. "I just wanted to talk to you directly. What happened today wasn't planned. I asked a question that didn't land the way I intended. I care deeply about every guest who walks onto my stage, and if I ever make someone feel cornered or exposed, I take that seriously." Comments flooded the live chat, hearts, supportive words, and yes, some criticism. But Kelly didn't flinch. She spoke with the same openness that had made her America's sweetheart. But this time it wasn't about a hit song or a feel-good story. It was about owning a mistake and not hiding behind edits or PR teams. Christopher watched from his suite in silence, the phone propped up on the desk. He didn't comment. He didn't text her again. But his expression softened. She hadn't made excuses, she hadn't deflected, she'd faced it. Maybe there was room for conversation after all, away from cameras, away from crowds. Maybe the real story wasn't about the clash. Maybe it was about what people do next when the lights go out and the truth is all that's left. *.